Hello, you're listening to the Derek Deputy Video Game Show. I'm Derek, and I will be talking about video games today. Everything I find interesting that has happened recently in the last week or two when it comes to video games. Just kind of based on my own preferences and interests. Please make sure you're following on whatever podcast platform you're using, subscribing, whatever they call the button, to make sure you're able to listen and find future episodes. I'm just going to get right into things with Nintendo Switch 2 rumors. A YouTuber, Mike Odyssey, claims a previously reliable source has told him a new Nintendo console is to be revealed in like a two-part presentation type thing, with a part 1 in June and a part 2 in September. Mike Odyssey is not the most reliable source, though. He's kind of a rumor monger. There's like a portion of YouTube where that's like all they do is kind of monger these rumors. And so he's not someone who is typically known as the most reliable source for this type of information. He's not a Jason Schreier or a Jeff Grubb or anything like that. He's not a journalist. He's just someone who makes their own content, and he probably wouldn't be particularly privy to certain sources, but he says this has been a source that has gotten things right before. But that's not what makes this interesting. What makes this interesting is another source that came out maybe 24 hours, 48 hours afterwards. I'm not sure exactly how long it was between them. And this was Cult of the Ember on Twitter. And they were talking about a new Nintendo console being revealed this year. And what's interesting about that is Cult of the Ember is not typically a Nintendo leaker. They are typically a Marvel leaker. They leak a lot of stuff related to Marvel movies, games, things like that. So, if we are to believe this, and I think with two people coming out with information around the same time, there's got to be a little bit of reason to believe there's something going on back there, I think. But assuming it's all real, what I find interesting about this is it means on the Switch 2 there could be a Marvel game. Because why else would a Marvel leaker have this information? Nintendo has published a Marvel game before. Marvel games have been on Nintendo's platform, so this kind of makes sense. And so I find that interesting. There's really not a whole lot to discuss here, but it is an excuse for me to say that I really hope the next platform is backwards compatible. Really, I just want more of the Switch. I think what I would like more for this next platform to be more like a Switch Pro almost, but I know it's like a new generation, and Nintendo will do new things. I hope they don't get too crazy with whatever they decide to do next. Typically, Nintendo will take their last platform and just evolve it with the next generation, and then start from scratch after that. So, for example, you had the NES to the SNES. It was really just an improvement on the NES. It was just an NES, but better. Then you had the N64, which was something new, and the GameCube was just an improvement. It was like pretty much a better N64. And then the Wii was something new, and then the Wii U was supposed to just be the Wii, but better. It didn't exactly turn out that way. They tried to innovate a little bit too much, and the advertising wasn't great. But we're at a time with the Switch where whatever's coming next, it should just be the Switch, but better. And so I expect they'll innovate in some way. I've heard stories online. Like I've read stories and stuff about like different temperature type technology that sounds right up Nintendo's alley. Maybe they could make it so that your controller gets like hot or cold based on what's going on in the game. That seems like something Nintendo would do. But whatever comes next, I really, the big thing, I want it to be fully backwards compatible. Backwards compatibility helps sell new games. When, let's say there's a new game in the Ace Attorney series. Well, if you can't play all the other Ace Attorney games that were on the Switch, on the new platform, that may make it difficult for new fans to get into that series. And so I just really hope, and that's just an example, but I really hope the next platform is backwards compatible. That way, if I want to play an old game, I can go play an old game. Like, it's that simple. If someone doesn't own a Switch and this next Switch is their first like gaming platform, they may want to play older games so they know what's going on in the new ones. And so I do really hope it is backwards compatible. I don't have too high hopes. Besides that, I just want a Switch but better. And that would make me perfectly happy. Next, I want to talk about Pokemon Go. In case you have not heard, Pokemon Go made some changes to the way raids are handled, specifically remote raids. At the beginning of the pandemic, Pokemon Go, Niantic, the developer of Pokemon Go, they made some changes to make it easier to play remotely. Specifically, they introduced remote passes. The problem is Niantic is ultimately more of an exercise company than a game company, to be honest. And so a lot of players are exclusively playing remotely, which Niantic views as a problem. I don't think it's actually a problem, but Niantic views as a problem because the point of them as a company is to get people out exploring and exercising. There are rumors that they might be selling location data. I'm not sure if that's true or not. It could be. But they want people out and exploring, and people aren't exploring as much because there are so many features that just allow them to play from home, which, to be fair, is an accessibility thing. There are a lot of people who wouldn't be able to play as much if they didn't have these remote features, were not able to play online. But that's irrelevant to Niantic. Niantic is making it so you can only do 5 remote raids per day. And then they also upped the prices of the remote passes. And the community is not very happy about this. I kind of see it both ways. As someone who is in an active community, it can be disheartening to see the post a raid or whatever, yet a bunch of people who want to do it remotely and then no one there in person. Part of the fun of the game is interacting with other people, exploring, and stuff like that. On the other hand, though, not everyone's going to have a community, and not everyone's going to have the ability to get up and walk. There are people with disabilities. There are people with busy schedules. It sucks, but the point of Pokemon Go is just not something that is going to work for everyone. I think Niantic could have handled this better. I think the community is over-exaggerating how bad it is. I really don't think it is as bad as some people are saying it is. But it definitely isn't a great situation. And ultimately, I don't think it's actually going to make people want to go play anyway. Their goal, they claim, is to get people out exploring, and I don't think this will do that. For one, people are just going to... Most people don't raid 5 or more times per day. Like, unless there's a special event of some sort, most people might do a raid per day, if that. And so you're not actually going to convince anyone to go out and play that way. Even with the increased prices, I think more people are more likely to just not raid. If you want to incentivize people to go play, the better option, instead of raising prices, would be to lower the prices of the in-person passes. So instead of raising the remote passes, they should have just kept all those prices the same and lowered the price of the in-person passes. And then maybe more people would buy them, and you'd make more money overall. The other thing, if exploring and exercising are really your two main goals, the way you get people to do that is to incentivize them with stuff they already want. So I've heard some ideas throwing around XL candy, or XL rare candies, and using those somehow. And I just don't think that would do that. I think a lot of players just do not care about the XL candies or the XL rare candies. It's just not... It isn't something that's going to incentivize everyone. I think the two things that a large majority of players care about are shiny Pokemon and filling up the Pokedex. And that is what you'd have to use to actually get people out and exploring. If it was me, what I would do personally is I would introduce 2 new items and make those items only available a certain way. And so the 2 items I would introduce would be the Master Ball and the Shiny Charm. And I would make it so that the Master Ball, you can obtain 1 per day when you spin a new Pokestop after level 40. I think people would want to get the Master Ball because it helps catch shinies before they can get away. And I think that would convince people, especially with the incense that lets you get the new legendary birds, the new versions. A lot of people are having trouble catching those. If you introduced a Master Ball that could only be obtained when you spin a new Pokestop like that, once per day after level 40, I think a lot of people would get out and explore and look for new Pokestops to spin to get their hands on that Master Ball. And then the other thing I said, the Shiny Charm. I think if you gave people... Now, you obviously would not be able to do like a full-on Shiny Charm all the time. That it would not be balanced. It would probably not be a good thing. But let's say once per week, if someone walks, well, let's say 200 kilometers, I don't know, some outrageous number, something that's possible, but something that would be really difficult to do. And they get a 1-hour Shiny Charm, where it's maybe a type of incense or whatever that increases the shiny chances of the Pokemon you're catching in the wild for an hour. I think that is something people would be interested in, and they would walk however long to do that. The only issues I see are, of course, with people who spoof, but that's going to be an issue like with anything you do to try and get people out walking and exploring. And so that's the real problem there, is just to stop the spoofers. And that's a completely different conversation. To be clear, I don't really care if people are spoofing, but I know Niantic does. And for these ideas to work, they would have to prevent the spoofing. But those are my thoughts. I think Niantic is approaching this situation incorrectly. I think the community is exaggerating how bad it is a little bit. But I definitely do think Niantic is approaching the situation wrong. I don't think they are incentivizing people correctly to make them want to go out, walk, and explore. And if you want to incentivize people to get out, walk, and explore, you have to give them something they want already. You can't introduce something new because there's a chance people won't want it. you can't use something like increasing the price because people just won't at that point. But if you incentivize people with new shinies or something, like a shiny charm, that sort of thing, a 1 hour shiny charm, I think that would get people out and playing. But I'm curious about your thoughts. We're going to take a quick break, and we'll be back after that. Doctor Who is coming to Fortnite. That's right. Not exactly a combination I saw it coming. I'm not a big Fortnite person. But Doctor Who is coming to Fortnite. According to iFireMonkey on Twitter, who is a big Fortnite leaker, it's going to be a big Doctor Who event for the show's 60th anniversary, including weapons, cosmetics, emotes, stuff in the item shop, all kinds of stuff in the item shop, outfits, or a outfit for the 14th Doctor and the 15th Doctor. It's actually kind of a bummer, to be honest, because I know everyone has like their own favorite Doctor, and it'd be interesting if they had outfits for all of the Doctors instead of just 2 of them. I think that would actually do quite well. But, gotta put David Tennant in everything. No other Doctors exist to some people. But at least we are getting 2 instead of just him, so that's fine. Also getting a TARDIS, a psychic paper emote, sonic screwdriver probably, I'd imagine. Just all kinds of stuff. And it sounds like it's going to be a big event, according to him. He said something about unit outposts on the maps and just like making it a big event, scanning for Doctor Who, like residual energy around the map. It is going to be like a core part of the game for a bit. And I find this interesting. I am a big Doctor Who fan. And I don't know. I've managed to dodge Fortnite so far. I've actually downloaded it on my Switch, but I've never actually played it. And I don't know. This might be it. This could be what gets me into Doctor Who. Doctor Who. I would be all about that. Or get me into Fortnite, not Doctor Who. Excuse me. I'm already into Doctor Who. But yeah, this could be what get me into Fortnite, because I am a big Doctor Who fan. And it just looks interesting. He's leaked it like 3 times. First he mentioned that it was coming, essentially. That's really all he said. And then they said, they listed some of the stuff. So they listed the 14th Doctor and 15th Doctor outfit, a TARDIS glider, psychic paper emote, a sonic staff, which I assume is just the sonic screwdriver, a Dalek manipulator arm, which that'd be kind of cool, I guess, and a bundle for the cosmetics, a free Time Vortex contrail, which I don't know what that is, exclusive IRL merch, which that's neat, unit advanced rifle, and Wrath Warrior cannon, weapons, so those would be weapons, and a unit code red event cosmetics, which will be sold in the shop later. I guess that's something you could like win through a battle pass, probably. Also, lots of stuff involving Beep the Meep, who has not actually been on like Doctor Who. He's been in the Doctor Who comics, but he's not actually been on Doctor Who yet. But he's going to be, it looks like he's going to be part of the anniversary special, and that's around when this event is expected to take place. And then he included, there was some like images and stuff. I just think it looks pretty neat as a Doctor Who fan. I'm glad to see it expanding into other medias. Doctor Who has a interesting history with video games, and by interesting I mean bad. Most of them are most of the Doctor Who games are not good. Most of them, so it's interesting to see it coming to Fortnite. But then he posted another leak with like script information, which, to be honest, all sounds kind of nonsensy. But it was like scripts for what looks to be filming for the Fortnite event of some sort, maybe like a trailer or something. It sounds like it's going to be big, and if it is really that big, as a Doctor Who fan, that could definitely be what gets me into Fortnite. But next, I actually want to talk about another rumor about a Luigi spin-off movie. There have been rumors on Twitter, on Reddit, based on some LinkedIn profiles, that the next Nintendo movie is going to be a Luigi spin-off. And I think that's a neat idea. When I was watching the Mario movie, which I just saw here recently, I really enjoyed it, and I think Illumination could do really well with the Luigi movie. I think most people assume this could be a Luigi's Mansion movie. I don't think that's the definite for certain, but it would be really cool if that was the case. I would love a Luigi's Mansion movie. Those games are pretty good, and I think Illumination would do a good job with such a thing. I would prefer to see something outside the Mario universe next. I've heard a lot of people say Metroid and Zelda. I'm not sure about those. It'd be cool to see them have movies, but if Nintendo's going to stick with Illumination, which it kind of looks like that's the plan, because there's just that relationship already there. The CEO of Illumination is on one of Nintendo's boards or something now. I don't remember exactly. But it sounds like that is their goal, is to keep going with Illumination. I'm not sure I would trust Illumination with Zelda or Metroid. I think there are other movie studios that could do those better. But I do think Illumination would do very well with a Kirby movie. So that's what I would personally like to see next. But Luigi's Mansion, that would be pretty cool. I would not be against that. Next, I want to talk about another game I've been playing, an older game that I have been playing. I have been playing Roller Coaster Tycoon lately, the old PC game. I've been having a lot of fun with that. And what started this is I was on YouTube, and I watched a few videos on Chris Sawyer, who is an interesting fellow. So, for those who don't know, Chris Sawyer is the person who designed Roller Coaster Tycoon. He's the one who programmed it. He's the one who made Roller Coaster Tycoon almost exclusively by himself. I think he got some help with like some of the sounds and got a little bit of help with the models. But like besides that, he did all the programming, did most of the work. He designed this game himself, and he did so in a assembly language x86, which is apparently really difficult to work in. Generally speaking, most programmers of the time period would use something like C++, Java, something like that, and those languages would translate into x86, which was easier on the programmers, but it also led to load times, lag, stuff like that. 1 or 2 lines in those languages can be 10, 20 lines in x86. To make the game function best, Chris Sawyer programmed this game entirely by himself. in the x86 language. And I just find that rather interesting, especially given that this is a game that was given away in cereal boxes. A ton of hard work was put into it, and they just were giving it away in cereal boxes. That is insane. I have been enjoying my time with the game here recently. It holds up quite well in modern times. It's been a little bit since I've played it. I was surprised because I have the old discs, but you don't necessarily need those if you don't own the game. It's available on Steam. There's a Roller Coaster Tycoon Classic, which is essentially just Roller Coaster Tycoon 1 and 2, and I've been having a lot of fun. The physics engine still holds up really well. The gameplay still holds up really well. It includes all the expansions, some of which is stuff I never played in the first place. So I've been having quite a bit of fun. I'm not really a roller coaster person in real life, but Roller Coaster Tycoon is definitely one of my favorite games, from that era. And so I've been just slowly making my way through many of the different parks, just completing the objectives they put forward, and just been having a lot of fun with it. And so that's the main big game I've been playing, besides another one. I will tell you more about that other one in a little bit, but first I do want to take another small break. So we will be right back. Recently, the Suicide Squad game was shown off. I thought it looked fine. I didn't hate it. It wasn't the best looking game ever, but it looked fun. I'm excited for the game. But here, even more recently, after they just gave the date, they delayed the game. Originally, this was a rumor from several prominent video game leakers, and then it was confirmed by Rocksteady, and then Jez Gordon of the Xbox Era podcast went to Twitter and mentioned that he heard that part of the delay was to remove the always online component. You see, Suicide Squad is set up to be a games as a service game. It was originally going to be games as a service, kind of like a Destiny-like game. And so when they showed some of the gameplay, people weren't happy about that. And so they delayed it. The real problem is that it's a core part of the gameplay. It's not something they can really change. That is the game. It is a Destiny type game. You can't just change what type of game it is mid-development. That'd be like switching from a first-person shooter to a 2D platformer or a 2D fighter or something. You might as well just cancel the game at that point. And after putting 5 years of development into this game, they're not going to cancel it. And so they delayed it, and I'm not sure why they delayed it. It doesn't really make sense, given that they can't really change what people dislike about it. They might be able to change some of the live game as a service type stuff, but ultimately it will still be a games as a service type game. And I think removing the always online component is a good first start, if that is really what's going on. I'm actually pretty excited to play this game when it comes out. For one, it is the last performance of Kevin Conroy, who has been my favorite Batman, to be honest. But even on top of that, I'm just excited to play the game. It's been a while since we've gotten a game from Rocksteady. I enjoyed all the Arkham games. I even enjoyed the recent Gotham Knights, which I know was not them, but I did enjoy it. I know a lot of people didn't. I thought it was perfectly fine. I thought it was fun. I don't think it should have been a $70 game, but I still did enjoy it for what it was. But I just find it amusing that they would delay this game. That's like their first reaction. And while delaying games to try and fix them up can be a good thing, I simply do not see any way they could fix this game, or at least what people don't like about it. It's just, there's no way, like, it's a core part of the gameplay. Removing the always online component is probably a good start, definitely a good start, but I don't think that's actually going to make people who saw this gameplay and were like, hey, we don't like that, I don't think it's going to change their minds. This game clearly started development when Destiny was really big, and that's clearly what it's trying to be. And it's just, that's not what people want out of games at the moment. So that's unfortunate for the developers after putting so much time. But it is what it is. I think at this point, I hope they don't delay it again. It just doesn't make much sense to delay. But it is what it is. I do have something else I want to talk about, though. I would like to talk about a Sony patent. I enjoy my PlayStation 5. I had a PlayStation 4 that I enjoyed. I enjoy my PlayStation 5. I like a lot of the games Sony puts out. This week, they filed a patent discovered by ResetEra. And what that patent does is, I'm going to quote it directly here. During a communication session, the system monitors for emotional states and triggers moderation rules based on that player's emotional profile. The system can modify the presentation of messages in accordance with the moderation action specified by the player's emotional profile. This technology can be used to prevent negative emotions, such as anger or bully language, from affecting a player's mental health or sensory processing conditions. I'm not sure how I feel completely about that. I'm all for more measures against, like, online bullying and that sort of thing. But letting it all be automated instead of, like, a person handling it, that can not always work. But that's not what's actually interesting to me. What's interesting to me is how this technology could be used in other ways, specifically in gameplay ways. I was talking earlier about how Nintendo likes to innovate with each new system, and I mentioned, like, an idea about temperature control, which I've seen thrown all around online. Well, this is something Nintendo, Sony, Xbox, someone can do as a way of innovating gameplay. If a game could sense your emotions and react to your emotions in a given way, and that modifies the gameplay, I think that would be interesting. I think it would definitely be aimed at a specific type of gamer. I don't think it'd be for everyone, but I think it's this interesting idea of taking this technology that they're planning on using for moderation, implementing it into gameplay, and see how they could use it to innovate in gameplay. Like, what if your character that you're controlling felt different moods based on how you feel, especially in a game like a Life is Strange type game, let's say? That could be rather interesting. There's all types of games where I could see a use for that. Maybe it affects, like, the way your character interacts with the other characters, and that, like, affects the story of a game. I think that could be really interesting. So while I do like the idea of using it for moderation, kind of, I don't like automated moderation. Moderation is best when it's done by humans. But I do like the idea, the basic premise of using it for moderation, but I really like the idea of how it could be taken further into actual games. And so I just found that rather interesting and wanted to share it with you. Earlier I mentioned how I've been playing Roller Coaster Tycoon and another game. Well, recently I have been playing Ghost of Tsushima for the first time. It is a game I have never played before. When it came out on PS4, I just kind of skipped it. My PS4's fans were kind of loud, and I just wasn't sure how I felt about playing that on the PS4 when realistically we knew PS5 was probably on the way. And so I waited until I had a PS5, and I've been playing it here recently. The director's cut specifically, so it does have all the extra features of the PS5, and it has the DLC. The game is very beautiful graphically. Like, it is very a sight to behold. When you look at a sunset, it looks like a real sunset. It is just an amazing game graphically. And really shows off the capabilities of the PlayStation 5. The sounds of the environment are great. The voice acting, it's fine. Like, I think the voice actors are doing a good job. I think the voice acting direction could have been a little bit better. It sometimes sounds just kind of weird based on what is happening in the game. The story itself is absolutely fantastic. Lots of good lore. The main missions and the main story are interesting, but there's also all kinds of little side missions and side stories that are also very interesting. What I really want to talk about, though, is the gameplay. A lot of people, when Ghost of Tsushima came out, a lot of people made it out like this was the next big thing. And I just don't feel it. It's fine. Combat is fun. But the lack of crafting options is a little bit disappointing. You can gather crafting materials, and you can take them to people to make something for you. There's a system there, but it doesn't feel like it is fully made the best use of. There's so much collecting the crafting materials, and there's enough materials in the game for a full crafting system, but a lot of the materials just end up feeling useless. Also, while Jin's main moveset, Jin is your main character, his main moveset is pretty diverse. It's almost too diverse, as there were clearly not enough buttons on the controller for them to do everything with this game that they wanted to do. Which ends up with a lot of switching between weapons and sword forms and stuff like that in combat, and it can be a little bit difficult to switch when you have to go through one wheel and then another wheel to get to the exact weapon that you want to use. It does mean there's a lot of variety in how you can approach missions. There's also, like, you can take a stealth approach, or you can just go in guns blazing, or swords blazing in this case. And I like that. But I do wish that there was a better way of implementing the different types of weapons, where you didn't feel like you had to constantly scroll through wheels when you're in the middle of battle to be able to use whatever weapon you wish to use, or sword style, or whatever. I think my biggest issue is the game is just too long. This may partially be because of how I decided to playing all the side missions as I played through the main story. But I've approached the last section of the game. It's split into like 3 different sections, and I've approached the last section, and I've already put like 25 to 35 hours in, and there's a whole nother section to play. This could end up being a 60, 70 hour game, and it just doesn't feel like it should be a 60, 70 hour game. It feels like it was extended just to get it that length. I don't like it. I think the game is too long. I would prefer if it was a 20, 30 hour game. I think that would make much more sense. Maybe 40 hours with side content. But besides that, I am having fun with it. I definitely do think it's a bit overhyped, but it is high quality. It's not anything innovative, but it is a fun game that's very much worth playing for the story and gameplay. I'm not sure it's something I would revisit in the future, but I do enjoy it. So we're going to take one last break, and then I have one or two more things I'd like to talk about. So, I've never really been able to get into the Grand Theft Auto games, but I have gotten into a lot of games similar to that. I really enjoyed the Watch Dogs games, for example, but another one that I don't talk about as much that I do enjoy are the Mafia games. I played Mafia 2 on the PlayStation 3. I didn't actually own a PlayStation 3. I used my brother's and played Mafia 3, and then I played Mafia 2, and I played Mafia 3 on the PlayStation 4, and I enjoyed that not as much as Mafia 2. Mafia 2 was very good. Mafia 3 was still good, but not quite as good as Mafia 3, or Mafia 2. Sorry, a lot of numbers involved here. Point is, these are games that I have played, I have enjoyed, and so when I heard about this, it caught my interest. On LinkedIn, Hangar 13, the development team, or the studio behind the Mafia series, are recruiting for the next iteration of the Mafia franchise. It's on their LinkedIn profile. They are hiring. Specifically, they are hiring someone to focus on the stealth and combat gameplay loops. This is interesting because Mafia has never really been a series that has focused on stealth. At least not 2. I don't think 1 did. I haven't actually played Mafia 1. I own it, and it's in my backlog. It's on my to-play list. I just haven't gotten around to it yet. That list always seems to be growing, but I'll get around to it eventually. Point is, there was not really much stealth in 2. They kind of sort of did stealth in 3, but it wasn't really a core aspect. It wasn't that important. When I think of Mafia 3, I think more of the strategy elements to how you take over the different districts, and of course the standard Mafia combat. So I find that interesting that they would focus on stealth, hire someone specifically for that. So clearly it will be a more important aspect of the next game. I really hope they fix the hand-to-hand combat as well to make it more like Mafia 2 instead of Mafia 3. Mafia 3, they kind of simplified it and it wasn't as good. And really, that just sums up Mafia 3 in general compared to 2. They simplified a lot of stuff. And I would like it to be more like Mafia 2, and I hope that's where they're going with this. That would be pretty fun. Or at least I think it would be fun. And I would just enjoy it. Hopefully this comes out here soon, although if they're just now hiring this type of position, I would imagine it's a few years out. Still, I would enjoy playing a new Mafia game. But I then do have one last story. I am looking at Video Games Chronicle for this. They post an article by a Chris Goulian, although you can really find this story everywhere. Originally originated on Politico, apparently. Politico reports that Democratic Senator Maria Cantwell made the claim during a Senate Finance Committee hearing on Thursday, calling on U.S. Trade Representative Katherine Tai to raise the issue with Japan trade talks regarding Sony engaging in anti-competitive behavior in Japan at the expense of Xbox. So what's going on here? The United States and Japan are having some trade negotiations at the moment. And with the Activision Blizzard deal being what it is, Microsoft buying Activision Blizzard, and with Microsoft being an American company, PlayStation being a Japanese company, this sort of thing has come up. And it started with a particular representative whose name honestly escapes me at the moment. I don't see it listed here. But it was the representative that represents the district that Microsoft is headquarters out of, pointing out, hey, we think PlayStation has a bit of a monopoly in Japan, and that's not fair for our American company, Microsoft. Which, to be fair, is kind of true, although it's not really the implications that they're trying to say. They're trying to claim it on PlayStation having these exclusives, and that's not really it. It's just the Japanese players just don't seem to like Xbox for some reason. It's not the type of games they play. They don't like it just doesn't radiate with them. Microsoft has never done well in Japan. Xbox has never done well in Japan. Microsoft has in other areas, but not in gaming. Point is, this has evolved. There's been 2 letters, one from 4 Republican members of Congress, the other from 6 Democrats, which also call on Tai and Commerce Secretary Gina Raimondo to take action. And the main accusation has to do with the exclusivity deals. They don't like that Sony is making deals with third-party publishers to get their games on their platform and only their platform. In my mind, exclusives are generally good for the video game industry, but I personally don't like when something is in a series that hasn't always been exclusive and then becomes exclusive. For example, Final Fantasy. Final Fantasy was originally traditionally on Nintendo systems, and then went to PlayStation, and then for a while it was just kind of releasing on everything. And so now for it to be PlayStation exclusive after Xbox players have been experiencing that franchise, I do think that's kind of unfortunate. Another good example is Spider-Man. I love Sony's Spider-Man games. They are phenomenal. They are some of my absolute favorite games. I do think it kind of sucks that games based on such a huge IP that everyone enjoys even outside of video games are exclusive to one console manufacturer. There's a difference between PlayStation making Spider-Man games exclusive and making God of War exclusive. And I think games like God of War being exclusive, that is good. But I do have a problem with franchises that are maybe based on other forms of media or were originally just third-party games that happen to be on everything, then becoming exclusive. I am not a fan of that. I know there's lots of examples of that. I just think it kind of sucks for the people who enjoy those franchises. Regardless, I do think this is not something Congress should really be involved in. I don't think these types of deals are why PlayStation just dominates Japan the way they do. Switch also does really well in Japan. And they're not hurt by PlayStation making these deals. The problem really is Microsoft and Xbox, it's not something they seem to have an interest in. Anyway, my name is Derek. Once again, if you could subscribe to this podcast or follow this podcast or whatever you're listening to it on, whatever it calls it, that would be great. This has been the Derek Deputy Video Game Show. I thank you for listening. I appreciate you. And till next time.